everybody, it's Andy from SnoCamps Europe, back with Paul from the Ski Instructor Academy here in Capron, and another podcast. And what are we talking about, Paul?
Well, there's a lot of comments about a lot of things since we've been away. I think probably I'll tackle this one first, which was a few people asked actually, but I can see, let's label one. Sparrowhawk was asking. Sparrowhawk, all these hidden names. Does Anverter mean level 2 or level 1? Yeah, and I said to him, have a little bit of patience because this really needs a bit of explanation to it. And it's not that I'm avoiding the subject, because it is complicated. And you know, because of how things have changed with the ISIA, you know, that inward folding of the ISIA, and then you've got the Italians, the French and the Austrians coming together with their version of events, and different people seeing equivalences of 1 and level 2. It is a minefield. And I think before I even answer that question, Andy, it's fair to say, first of all, it's what the ski schools think that matters most.
Yeah. It's what it's the relevance to the ski school of what they interpret your qualification to be.
Yeah,
because that's gonna one, depend on what kind of work you get, and two, depend on how much money you get paid.
Yeah, and in fairness, if you read like Ski Instructor Academy's facts, for example, we're very careful not to sell a qualification, because we often say things like, look, if you're going to Italy to work, seems to make sense. Why don't you do Italian qualifications? Or you're going to Canada, do Canadian qualifications. Mm-hmm. And obviously in the past, because Austria was such a proud ski nation, and, you know, people really put a lot of strength behind the Austrian qualification, we sold it because it was well recognized around the world. But equally, you can't say it's worldwide recognized as such, because the French would argue, well, actually, you know, you need to jump through some hoops before it would be recognized.
Yeah, and it would only be recognized at the level 4 level.
Exactly, at the Stadtleiter level, the diploma level. So there's too much politics going on. It does confuse people. And a lot of people who are questioning me at the National Snow Show there, I was saying the same thing. I'm saying, look, you need to decide, what do you want out of this? Is this a gap year, a woohoo party with this, that, the other? When, look, every company's going to offer you a great time. You're going to have a wonderful time. And if that's all you're interested in, then who cares what qualification you're doing? But if you want that qualification to go somewhere after that, and it has to provide you work after that, then you've got to be really cautious where you start, because you might be throwing money away. And look, I'm coming from somebody who's done a BASI, who's done New Zealand, who's done Canadian qualifications, and has done Austrian qualifications. So I sort of have a good idea and a good feel for things. And, you know, then people might say, what's the best? That's always the next question. What's the best qualification? Well, actually, there's no best either, because you can do an Anverter with one examiner and think it's the best ever. And then, you know, you could do an Anverter with a different trainer. It would be terrible. Or, you know, it really depends on the trainer and the examiner that you work with as to whether you think that's a great qualification. But for me, the level 1, 2, 3, 4 system is what most people have in their brain now. You have to remember, I think, well, I don't know about you, Andy, but going back a while, if you think the BASI used to do 3, 2, 1, would
3,
go
2, 1.
backwards. And 1 was the highest, and 4 didn't exist. So when everybody keeps asking, is it a 1, is it a 2? You can see why I'm trying to avoid answering that question directly online, because I could show you qualifications that were completely different, you know, whether it be the French or the Italian Maestro or something. So you have to be cautious of just thinking that if I turned around and said to you, maybe you could, Sparrowhawk, you can answer this question yourself. If you look at the criteria for, let's say, a BASI 1, a PSIA 1, an NZSIA 1, and a CSIA 1, for example, let's take those examples of average of about either 4 to maximum 5 days skiing. And you take a BASI that allows you to teach in an indoor environment, or in an environment where you're within the reach of a qualified instructor or something like that. It takes you up to a plough turn, for example, or a plough parallel. Somewhere about there. And you look at that, and then you think of an Anverter, that's a 10-day qualification. You're required in a lot of them to do some sort of long turn and short turn, as well as the plough parallel and the plough, and you've got a teaching qualification. What do you think then an Anverter is compared with a CSIA 1, for example? You know, it's there you are. There's the answer to the question, because even though, for example, in the Wiener Schülerverband here in Austria and the Snow Sports Academy, they will write on this is a combined level 1 and 2. The Tyroleans wouldn't write that on because the Tyroleans just have an Anwärter, a Landeslehrer, and a Staatlicher. There's only 3 levels. There isn't 4 levels. So again, they would say an Anwärter is not a level 1 because they don't say that. If you try and ask them to say, please say that's a level 1, they'll go, no, it's an Anwärter. But you'll go, yeah, but that's a level 1 then. But then they'll go, yeah, but then Staatlicher is a level 3 then, is it? No, you see it as a level 4.
Yeah. They don't put a number to the name, do they?
And the reason being, this is why the Snow Sports Academy did in the Wiener Verband, because they were looking outward. The Tyroleans look inward. As far as the Tyrolean Association thinks it's the centre of the world, and therefore it just doesn't have any interest in what somebody thinks about their qualification being a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They couldn't care. They're not interested in you, in your levels, because all that matters is them. Anwärter, Landeslehrer, Staatlicher. Now, the Snow Sports Academy, obviously, because they travel internationally, were thinking, hang on a second, this is really confusing. When people are going to Japan, the Japanese don't know what an Anwärter is. So we need to give them some direction. So, okay, we'll put on it level 1 and 2. And then a Landeslehrer, which fair enough, come on, a Landeslehrer was ISIA, was level 3. And it should be a level 3, you know, but you've got to do giant slalom race, you've got to do off-piste, moguls, you've got to do all the things you'd expect to see in a Bézi 3, in a Canadian 3, and more. You know, a Canadian 3, I would say, we always said Canadian 3, low ISIA, and then you'd have like something like a Bézi 3, high ISIA. There's a lot of modules, there's a lot of things you've got to do. And then you've got Landeslehrer, also a high ISIA. So if you had to put a number on it, you would put number 3. And Snow Sports Academy will put number 3 on your document for you, because once again, they know that you might take that document to Australia or Canada or America, and then those people will know, you've got a level 3, because it then helps them to understand. But the truth of the matter is, nobody can legally say that in one direction, because actually, it doesn't exist. It's Anwärter, that's the name of it. It's Landeslehrer, and an Anwärter is, in effect, a trainee. Yes. It's like an apprentice.
We've said this before, haven't we? Yep.
And a Landeslehrer is a national qualification. It's something which allows you to be a national teacher. However, previously with the ISIA, it's an international thing. And then, of course, you have your Staatlicher, which is your diploma level. So, Sparrowhawk, it's hard to answer, but I can say to you, I've had this for a decade of trying to pin this down. Some associations appreciate it and think, yes, we need to be outward looking internationally and help people who have an Anwärter. So when they go somewhere like Australia, New Zealand, the ski schools can go, this is a level 2, and they can ring up the association who can confirm it. What I'm getting them to do now is I'm asking them to put on the criteria of that Anwärter onto the certificate. Like you will see often in other associations, they'll say, for example, this person has done a teaching module, he has done skiing down a red piste at 18, 19, 20 degrees, whatever, long turns, and this short. So they can read and go, I can see what this is. It was a 10-day exam. Right, the Canadians a 4-day. That makes sense. But look at the difference there. With a Bézi 1, which is 5 days, I think still, you can't teach outdoors. With you can.
Dry ski slope, non-mountain environment.
Yeah. And then with a Canadian 1, which is only about 4 days, you can actually just go off and teach. And this comes down to liability. So when I recently sat in a meeting with Kevin from Bézi, we were discussing this with a French course. And you know, when I said to Kevin from Bézi, I said, look, I don't really have any loyalty to any association, whether it's the Austrians, it's Bézi, Canadian, whoever. I have only loyalty to our clientele. And I need to offer them, because they're inexperienced, they don't know, like Sparrowhawks asked me, what the hell is it? Like, you know, I get what he's asking. He wants to know. I need to give him an answer that suits his tailor-made life, that what he wants from that qualification. And I'm not selling him an Austrian when a Bézi would be better, or a Canadian would be better. I have to look at the clientele and decide what is better for them. But the mess of the politics of the ski associations and the ISIA, and the fact that probably, I would have said, not that I'm giving anything news out, but Switzerland's probably going to drop out as well of the ISIA. If that happens, it will completely fold. And then you won't have any international level. And that'll make questions as what happens to interski, what happens to all these, these events and stuff where they bring these associations together. So it's a very challenging question what you're asking me, because it's a very fluid situation that's constantly changing. And in the national show, a lot of questions people were asking me were about Basie. And I said to Kevin from Basie, I said, a lot of people, I said, why don't you just go and ask them? They're over there. They're over there. Go and ask them. Because I'm not the expert on Basie,
Go and talk to Basie.
Go and talk to Basie, yeah. I can tell you though, and this is definitely what Andy and I keep saying, and Andy said it at the start, ski schools make the decisions at the end of the day. They'll take the liability, because unknown to many people, some countries are unregulated with skiing. So I think Switzerland's one, for example. You might think you have to have a ski qualification to teach. You don't.
Yeah, you can open a ski school in Switzerland, I learned last year, without being a skier. You can be a businessman and open a ski school as long as you employ a top level 4, let's say, level 4 Swiss ski teacher. So I could go to Switzerland and open a ski school.
Yeah.
Bonkers.
Yeah. And that's the same in many countries. So, and in some countries, like I say, you don't even need a ski qualification to be a ski instructor. So this is the mess that we're in. And it is a minefield. And yes, people like myself are constantly within the game. So I speak to people, but of course they're trying to sell their associations often and their products. So I have to also cut through that and think, where are we best off as a company offering qualifications? Because already, and it wasn't our fault, let's say with Brexit, but have I missold people having an Austrian qualification over this last 10 years? Well, I didn't predict Brexit. I had no idea. And in theory, people still have a European qualification. It's the right to work that's become the problem. So when I sat with Basie, they said their qualifications is solid as ever, under how they see it. They see their qualifications still as recognised. So, and they're annoyed about the rumour mill and the gossip here. But whether they can actually show that and prove that within Europe, etc., we'll wait and see and see what happens.
I think there's a bit of a difference between what's recognised and what's accepted.
Well, yeah.
Because I know a ski school that we used to work for probably would say, I'm not going to employ a Basie level 2. I recognise their qualification, but I'm not going to accept it.
Yeah. And this horrendous politics within the game. And of course, you have to remember that Brexit is, in itself has caused a bit of a sting around Europe where people are looking for England to fail and they're not going to help. So they're going to make it awkward as much as they can to say, well, that's how it is. And it's that's going to take some time. That hurt is going to take some time to heal. Don't get me wrong, in the future, things will settle again and we'll be talking about, another situation within ski politics. But whenever you are starting up, and I spoke to many people about starting their careers, and the interesting one was I had a lot of people come to me who had Basie 1s because it's so easy to do, and during the COVID times probably they went off and did a Basie 1, and in one sense they feel like they're already on the path of being a ski instructor. But to be fair, it doesn't really matter whether you go off now and do a Basie 2 or actually just go into an Anverter. You could just start again and do it. It's not really starting again though, is it? It's like the Basie 1's continuing. You just continue by doing an
continuation,
Anverter.
I know there's a fair few people who've got Basie level 3s who are looking to change to transfer into the Austrian system and then go on for their level 4 within the Austrian system, because I think they believe it will give them a better chance of gaining employment and the right to work. Because I think also with Basie, is it right that they can no longer do the Euro test for the level 4?
Yeah, the Euro tests obviously can't be done as a Euro test anymore because they're not part of Europe. So
they will do a speed test, but it won't be the Euro test.
It won't be recognised.
Yeah.
So there's that. But look, we're talking, most of the people that we deal with, 85% will be level 1, 2. Not many people go to a level 3 anyway. That's already a huge step. I would say you're lucky if it's 15% of the ski market, the ski instructors around the world. And, I sat with Warren Smith over the weekend, and we were talking about level 3 and level 4 training and things. And actually, I had a message off one of my long-term clients as well, who was asking me to do a level 3 for 10 or 12 weeks. Oh. And I said to Steve, I said, look, Steve, he says, why don't you do that? And I said, well, funny enough, I sat with Warren Smith and we were discussing level 3 and how, it's slumped. There's less and less people will train before doing a level 3 exam. They always want to go direct to try and avoid the extra cost. But also, they're just not interested in putting the time in. And of course, then I spoke to a lot of people who were, were in my age bracket and above, who have got their level 2 and they were trying to reach that next standard at level 3. And it's challenging. It's extremely challenging at level 3 at their age. And that's where Steve's at as well. He's desperately trying to set up enough training where he feels he could reach it.
Yeah.
But trying to get people to do a level 3 training course is hard. If I look at the bookings this year for people doing level 3, it's 1/3 of what it was last year. And it's basically because of Brexit, because people are going, why do I want to invest in now a qualification anymore? Because I can't ski, I can't teach. Why bother? And also, I think a lot of people think, well, I'll just ski and eventually I'll just go for the exam and try it. Maybe I'm lucky, I save myself a few grand. But most people fail. Most people fail a level 3. Yeah. It's they need training.
I think people they don't realise that the step between the level 1, 2 and the level 3 is very, very wide. Yeah. The gap between the two qualifications.
And they tried in Basie, in fairness, they tried to bring it closer together. That was one of the things we were trying to do about a decade ago, trying to get level 2 nearer to 3. They were one of the companies I felt were trying to do that. Whereas, you're right, other companies are a mile apart. Like, they are from finishing your level 2. I always say to people, you need 3 or 4 seasons then, It's because not just because of the ski element, but also because of the experience of teaching and etc. as well.
Goes back to what we've talked about on the other podcast, isn't it? About experience versus youth and speed, let's say.
And that goes with the level 4 as well. If they continue to go down in this sport of, having people tick boxes that are non-achievable for a certain age bracket, it'll always stifle them from getting the best coaches in the world. That's just the way it's going to be, because you could have, for example, a coach like me or somebody else who's come from professional coaching background. I don't know, he was a coach in gymnastics, or he was a coach in boxing, weightlifting, or whatever, a world-renowned coach. And he comes out and thinks, I'm going to do something else. I'm fit, I'm healthy, 50-year-old, I'm going to go off. I was ex-tennis player, whatever. He probably will never pass a level 3. He's probably never going to be able to do that. Yet he'll be the best coach by far, because he'll absorb into the whole culture of skiing, that he'll look into the history of skiing, he'll look into everything about it. He'll already have the biomechanics expertise, he'll understand the psychology of coaching, he'll be a fantastic coach, but he might not just be able to go through them gates quick enough. That's just ridiculous. There's no other sport does it. Even in weightlifting, when I did weightlifting qualifications, they didn't say, unless you lift that 120 kilo over your head, you can't be a coach. Like, what? It was just ridiculous.
We're going off on a tangent slightly, but somebody came back with an argument of a PGA golf pro has to play 2 rounds, scoring a certain score in a time frame. And they were comparing that to that race. So my response was, how many of those people who've played them 2 rounds of 18 have had a career-threatening injury from playing 2 rounds of golf? Probably not that many.
Yeah, it's hard to have apples and oranges and
pears.
Yeah,
swings
all
and
them
roundabouts.
Anyway, as Andy said, I did start a rant as ever.
So level 1 or 2, who knows?
I hope you can answer the question yourself. I just avoided the whole thing.
You had a good rant there, didn't you?
I did. See you in the next one.
Bye for now.